In this video, we are going through the best game and controller settings to be using if you're playing the Modern Warfare 2 beta on a console. So to start this video off, one of the most important parts is of course your controller. So in the input section, the button layout and controller vibration is going to be down to personal preference. The one thing I would definitely recommend here is to turn the trigger effect to off. When you load up the game for the first time, this will most likely be set to full haptics. This is just like when you play a campaign and you can actually feel the resistance of the trigger when you're trying to use it. So to get the most out of it, I would definitely turn it off and you won't be struggling to pull the trigger, and so it's not affecting any of your gunfights. Again, the aiming section is going to be pretty much down to personal preference. Whatever you like to play sensitivity wise, just go for that. In the gameplay section, this is going to be down to whether you want to learn or you want to try to slide cancel in Modern Warfare 2. If you do, I will leave a link in the description to the video for my tutorial on how to slide cancel in the beta. If you don't, you can leave all of this on default. Moving on to the controller advanced tab, aim assist, of course, just double check this is on. The response curve type is down to you. Some players might play on dynamic, some players might play on standard. Most commonly will be standard, so you can leave that on default. In the aiming section, I would leave everything on default apart from the input dead zones. Again, change these to what you're used to. Left stick and right stick max can stay on the default or put it up to 1. Left stick and right stick min, I would probably put these down to 0.01 if you've got a new controller. If you've got a little bit stick drift, you can turn these up a little bit. L2 and R2, so these are the triggers, the ADS and the actual trigger. I put these down straight to 0, just so when you pull that trigger, it is pretty much an instant reaction. Moving on to the movement behaviors, this is going to be down to whether, again, you want to try and learn how to slide cancel. If you don't, you can leave all of it on default. If you do want to learn it, again, I'll leave a link, but the ground mantlings and the airborne mantlings are going to be the ones you want to turn off. Everything after that, the combat behaviors, the vehicle behaviors, overlay behaviors, all of that can just stay on default. So moving on to the graphics. Now this is where you're going to be able to get the most out of your game on your console. On-demand texture streaming can just stay on, but the post-processing effects, this is where you're going to have to change the most stuff. So world motion blur and weapon motion blur definitely need to be turned off. Film grain can be put down to 0 as well. Depth of field, I would always turn this off. This just means when you're aiming down sight, the stuff around you isn't blurry. And then the fidelity FX cast stuff can just be left on default. So moving on to field of view. Now this again is going to be down to personal preference. I would definitely recommend having it on at least 100 and then just move up to where you're comfortable. 110, 107, 120. It's all going to be viable when you're playing this game, but I feel if you have this setting on anything less than 100, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. ADS field of view needs to be on affected. That will just mean that your gun won't zoom in when you're trying to ADS, and it means you'll have a little bit less visual recoil, just makes the gun a little bit easier to use as you're looking at it. And then weapon field of view, this is down to personal preference. I've just left it on default. If you are interested in playing the third person modes, I would definitely turn up the field of view for third person all the way up to the highest it can go, which I think is 90. So moving on to the audio tab, most of this stuff can be left on default. I would definitely recommend changing the audio mix to headphone bass boost. This will allow you to hear those footsteps a little bit easier, not that you need to in this beta, but the bass boost has been the tried and tested audio mix, seems to be the best one. Master volume can stay on 100. This is going to be personal preference, but I like to turn the music volume right down, not off, so I can still enjoy some of the stuff that they have put in this game, but it is a bit of a distraction, especially when you're playing Warzone and stuff like that. In the end game, the music starts to pick up, so I would definitely recommend turning music volume down at least. Keep it on if you want, but definitely turn it down. The subtitles will be defaulted to just being on the campaign, which I quite like, and then the voice chat and the channels can just be left as a default. Now moving on to the interface side of things, again there's not really that much to change here. You can keep most of it on default. If you do have issues with color blindness and stuff like that, this is where you're going to be able to change everything that concerns coloring in the game. Now the HUD, the HUD, this is where you're going to want to change one thing. I would definitely recommend putting the minimap shape on square. You will just get the most out of the minimap if you have that on square, and the rest of the stuff's down to personal preference, but I would not recommend turning off any of this stuff because these are like the visual cues you get when you're playing the game. And there we go, guys. Those are the best game and controller settings to be using in the Modern Warfare 2 beta if you are playing this on a console. If you found this helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it down below. Let me know your thoughts on the beta in the comments below. We can use it as a discussion section. Are you enjoying it? Are you hating it? Is it a dub? Is it an L? Let me know in the comments below. Really appreciate you staying tuned to the video, guys. As always, feel free to subscribe to the channel for all of the latest Call of Duty news, tips and tricks, how-tos, class setups, and much more. And again, if you've made it this far and you are interested in checking out the video and the tutorial on how to slide cancel, I will leave that down in the description below, and it will be on the card somewhere on screen right about now.